So for the roundtable on medical devices, just the afternoon, intense discussion on EU HTA in the medical device area. Also in terms of conflict of interest, to be upfront, there's minor funding from Alira Health, and apart from this one, no funding at all. So it's really a very free, very open discussion on this one. This is the agenda for the afternoon. We have 3 parts. Part 1 is setting the scene, what is it all about, let's say bringing us all on the same page in the end, with a variety of keynote presentations, each keynote presentation 7 to 10 minutes to give a good insight into health policy perspective, then of course the coordination group perspective with Marco Marchetti, overview of HTA in medical devices from an academic perspective, patient perspective of European Patient Forum, notified bodies, regulatory perspective with Andreas Stange from TÜV Süd, expert panel insights, and perhaps also clinical insights. So this overlap from Rob Nellison and the industry perspective. After this one, we allow short questions after each presentation, but the aim of part 1 is to really get us all on the same plate and have a good understanding what we are discussing about. Then we have a coffee break, and then we go into deep discussions, and we ask each of the presenters in part 1 to come up with 1 or 2 summary slides, and we will go back to those summary slides and then discuss in more detail, have 15 minutes per perspective. So 15 minutes on the patient perspective, 15 minutes on the clinical perspective, and so on and so on. And then to end the whole thing with, we don't have running, lassen Sie noch offen, es kommt noch jemand. Yeah. We don't have yet running procedures in the arena, at least to my knowledge. And we thought, but we still need to, let's say, try to be as specific and concrete as possible, as granular as possible. That's why we asked Adrian Krivin and Andrea Mantovani to, let's say, dive into also historic case examples, and they have experience in their professional environment and give us some granular view on what this is about, their historic experience in the old environment and how this would translate in the new environment and how all the nice things that we have discussed previously would turn up in this new situation in EU HTA. That's the plan for the afternoon. Some short background on EAA. It's founded in 2021, the year of the EU HTA regulation. It's a bottom-up crowd-funded initiative aiming to ensure and support the regulation. Our approach is 2 conventions per year at an academic center or at a HTA body. A multi-stakeholder discussion covering the hot topics of EU HTA. We try to have extensive publication education effort, and we have the faculty that is kindly hosted by Walter van Dijk and the Fleric Business School in Brussels. This one is not yet a convention, EAA convention, it's adjunct, but I said previously it's a separate initiative and not funded, so it's no conflict of interest. That's my last slide, just introducing the discussion, setting the scene. EAA is a full supporter of EU HTA. From our point of view, good HTA, what we all want, has always to balance the type 1 and the type 2 error. The type 1 error is in the end that we or the systems pay without additional return for the patients. And this is what we want to avoid, of course. But the type 2 error is the other side way around, that let's say good or innovative stuff and helpful medicines or medical devices are not anymore reaching the patients because the hurdles are too tough. And I think good HTA, what we are looking forward to having in Europe, should balance the 2 errors. And type 1 is also always more amenable to statistics and type 2 error is a little more difficult to quantify, but we need to approach the two of them. My private and personal view, EU HTA regulation is here to stay. There's no doubt about this one, and our job is simply to support it and trying to make it successful. Then HTDs, we will have a lot of discussions later on in the slides on, let's say, the requirements of relative effectiveness and how difficult it is in the medical device area. But we should get out of complaint modus and look into what can be done. That's in the end my question to the HTDs. What can be done in terms of comparative effectiveness? Because this is what the regulation wants. On the other hand, I think the coordination group, the HTA bodies, and everybody has to acknowledge the evidence characteristics of the medical device market. It's different from, for example, pharma. Product life cycles are different. Feasibility of a randomized controlled study design is difficult if you have a surgeon who is implementing the device, and so on and so on. So it's completely different. And HTA bodies need to acknowledge this in terms of their methodology that they are applying. So from my point of view, I always see when looking into this area, two circles, let's say the evidence needs and the current standard, what we have, and the circles are almost not overlapping. That's my feeling. And I think our job is to look for what is the overlapping area between the two. And of course, all other stakeholders, patients, clinicians, regulators, health policy, and so on, they have to observe, advise, and support those mutual efforts. Our guiding question for the afternoon, what are the criteria for successful implementation?
Okay, actually, Jörg asked me, as we are in Germany, whether I can spend one slide on where are we with regard to medical devices in Germany, and happy to do so. Actually, Germany is a country, as all of you know, where we have a relatively sharp cut between inpatient and outpatient sector, and that's also regarding the reimbursement and the pathway to reimbursement with regard to medical devices, because in the inpatient sector we have what we call permission with reservation of prohibition, and in the outpatient sector we have exactly the opposite, prohibition with reservation of permission, which means that in outpatient sector a procedure can only be done after there has been a benefit evaluation and then a fee schedule in the fee schedule book, whereas in the hospital it's the other way around. Hospitals basically can do what they want unless it's not forbidden, so every new methodology can be applied. That does not, however, automatically mean that you get additional funding. There's a special procedure then to try to get additional funding, but at least hospitals can do it. And if you read in the reasoning of the parliament, it's quite interesting to see, because parliament argues in hospital we want to have medical advances, medical technical process being implemented relatively smoothly, whereas we have a horror that 150,000 office-based physicians start to do new procedures, and therefore we have this exact other way around, which means that we regularly do have HTA by GBA if we want to implement a new method with a new medical device in office-based ambulatory care. But we hardly see it in hospital care, because only if it's if somebody tries to study whether one should get some procedure out of the hospital, then you should start an HTA. Actually, one of the effects of it is that we do have a delay of access in ambulatory care in social health insurance if you compare it with private health insurance. As most of you may know, Germany is not a country with a uniform healthcare system, but we have 90% of the population in social health insurance, and 10% are in a separate private insurance system. And there is immediate access to of ambulatory new procedures and devices. I did a major study where we looked into the years from 2010 to 2020, and we discovered that the delay for social health insurance patients is between 2 and 12 years. So there was one case where really GBA dealt 12 years with its HTA till they finally came to a decision, and during these 12 years there was already access to private patients. Well, regarding the HTA methods which are applied by GBA, basically GBA is following the that HTA is HTA is HTA, that you should avoid having different type of HTA for drugs for medical devices or inpatient and outpatient. Therefore, all the issues, trial design, endpoints, modeling, all the discussions basically are the same which we have in drugs, where it's in the AMNOG system, of most of you may know, and in the medical devices field. One last point which I want to point out, which I find very exciting and increasingly exciting, is that GBA, usually HTA agencies only collect data. And in medical devices, we do have since 10 years now another job for GBA, because he can study its own evidence collection, and that's increasingly being done. I'm actually chairing one of the consortiums which is doing studies for GBA in this field. They make an official announcement that they have a topic for which they invite academic institutions to make proposals for a design of study, and then you come into a negotiation process between GBA, being backed up by EQUIC, and the academic institutions on the final design of a study. And then you really run a study, and the interesting thing is during this study, only those providers can take part which are willing to collect the data, etc. But then social health insurance has to pay for the service within this study. Therefore, I think that's a very interesting pathway, because GBA there is not only collecting data, but really having the role of also engaging in developing new evidence for potential new methods. Well, I think that's enough for the country where you are, and I now give the micro back to Jörg.